Propyzamide, it's one of those key actives for Corteva, but it's also key active for growers who have quite limited products available for weed control, especially in a crop such as winter beans. So we want to make sure that it continues to be available for growers.
With the drilling season almost upon us, we're talking to Corteva Agriscience's Joe Martin and to Dr. Becky Howard from the PGRO about responsible use of what is an extremely important product for blackgrass control in winter bean crops, Kerb. I'm Ben Pike, and you're listening to Inside the Pod from the Processors and Growers Research Organisation. So today's episode is all about Propyzamide. You might know it as Kerb or Kerb Flo, but it's one of the most important pre-emergent herbicides used in winter beans, offering growers a reliable option for grassweed control. But environmental scrutiny is mounting due to water contamination risks. I've got Dr. Becky Howard here with me, as well as Joe Martin from Corteva Agriscience to talk about Propyzamide and good stewardship. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
So Kerb has been around for a very long time, and Becky, we're familiar with it, not only its use in beans, but also being a mainstay of oilseed rape programs as well. Do you want to start just by introducing us to how Kerb is traditionally applied in beans and what it is that growers are trying to achieve when they put it on?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kerb is used in winter beans only. It's a winter applied pre-emergent herbicide in the amide group, which is persistent and controls, I suppose, the key targets are the grass and volunteer cereal weeds, and particularly blackgrass, but it also controls wild oats, annual meadowgrass, volunteer cereals, and barren brome, as well as a few broadleaved weeds like nettle, redshank, speedwell, black nightshade, knotgrass, fat hen. So it's got a reasonably good broad spectrum activity, but for the key target for many growers in winter beans is to use it for blackgrass control, which it's very good at still.
Joe, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us for the podcast today. What is it that you think is so useful about Kerb and Propyzamide products for across your portfolio that you offer on all crops? What is it about Propyzamide that you think is so attractive that's been around for so long and so well used?
Hi Ben, good to join you today. Kerb Flo, it's been around, like you say, for a long time, but it gives, as Becky's just said, really effective control of grass weeds and also some broadleaf weeds. We have no known resistance to Kerb Flo, so it's a great product for cleaning up some of those key grass weeds, including resistant blackgrass across the rotation. And that's why it's particularly useful in a break crop such as winter beans, giving a different mode of action for farmers and growers to use in their crops.
And Becky, just sort of from a research point of view, where have you seen Kerb best applied? What sort of timings and rates have you seen it used at, and what kind of results have you seen from those?
So we get best control really in the sort of late October through to December period, I would say, when soils are at their coolest. Perhaps soils need to be quite moist, but not at full capacity, of course. I think if they're waterlogged or at full capacity, then that takes us into that sort of risk situation. The rate can be reduced slightly depending on the weed burden. So for blackgrass in particular, if you've got a very high population of blackgrass, then we would recommend that sort of full rate of active substance to get best control. Again, bearing in mind the risks for each particular field. And it is very effective. So our trials have shown that over the years, really, that at that time, applied when soils are below 10 degrees and soils are moist, that it gives good control. There are a few restrictions, of course, with Kerb Flo in winter beans. The first is that it has to be applied within 7 days of drilling, and it can only be applied between the 1st of October and the 31st of January. And I know Corteva have got good data also to show that when it's applied in early October or in January, the effectiveness of that product is much lower. So definitely from now until December, the end of December, are the sort of key period, really.
Would you agree with that, Joe? Is that sort of what you're seeing from your trials and from your sort of extensive years of seeing the product being used?
Yeah, no, very much so. Yeah, soil temperature definitely needs to be declining below that 10 degrees C. We do need some nice soil moisture in there because the herbicide is generally taken up by roots of the weeds to get that good, effective control. In terms of persistency, if you go too early and the soils are too warm, then the longevity of the product giving you control tends to reduce. So that's why one of the reasons why we say to go later in the autumn if you can. But as Becky was saying, in terms of soil moisture, you want some soil moisture there, but you don't want the soil to be waterlogged because that's when we do come into problems with water protection.
Before we go on to the sort of main stewardship topic, Becky, what's your sense on where growers are at regarding drilling beans at the moment? We've had certainly around us in the Midlands here, it's been a little bit wet over the weekend, but it's nice and dry and sunny again today. But what's your sense for how far away we are from the main drilling season, or are people already underway?
I think many people will be underway as soon as they can. There may be one or two growers that have drilled a bit early in earlier October, but now through November it really is the key drilling timing. So this is the time we're thinking about applying Kerb for sure.
And in terms of the weather patterns that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, are soils at a reasonable condition for those applications to take place? I'm appreciating that we're not quite there on soil temperatures yet, but they're not particularly waterlogged at the moment from what we've seen around the country.
No, they're actually probably still reasonably dry underneath, I would say. So maybe moisture in the top part of the soil, but perhaps a little bit dry underneath. It depends where we are, of course. I mean, different regions will have had different amounts of rainfall in the last few days.
Yeah, huge variation, I think, across the country from what we've seen. So we decided to raise the topic of stewardship today. It's an important message, not just for protecting the products and the active propyzamide, but also the environment and where that can end, where the product can end up if it's not managed. Joe, why is propyzamide stewardship so important to Corteva and to the environment, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, propyzamide, it's one of those key actives for Corteva, but it's also key active for growers who have quite limited products available for weed control, especially in a crop such as winter beans. So we want to make sure that it continues to be available for growers. The issue with water is that drinking water has to adhere to a drinking water standard. So an individual pesticide cannot exceed 0.1 micrograms per litre, which is a really, really small amount. And we do occasionally see propyzamide popping up in monitoring from water companies at certain times of year when propyzamide has been used. And therefore, growers adopting best practice or good stewardship measures is really important to help stop that movement of propyzamide off fields into water supplies.
And what are the sort of main stewardship principles that you would see in beans? I know we sort of touched on them in conversation so far already, but if I was to ask you for a number of bullet points that you'd want growers to follow ahead of drilling this season, what would they be?
So within Corteva, we like people to think about the propyzamide use really early on before they even think about putting the crop in the ground. So it's really thinking about whether or not the field is right for growing a crop where you might want to put a Kerb application on. So ideally pick a low risk field. So these would be fields that don't have a slope down to a watercourse, are less susceptible to runoff, Don't have field drains. I know a lot of fields in the UK do have drains, but if their option is available, then great. Ideally, something that hasn't been recently deep subsoiled as well. And then in terms of sort of establishment, then think about the sort of the layout of the tram lines, which direction you're going to drill the field. Again, trying to ensure that you're not providing a route for the water to leave the field. Try to remove some sort of surface compaction in the tram lines if that's at all possible when you're establishing the crop. And also try not to overwork the field if at all possible.
These all sound like fairly straightforward measures. Becky, in practice, how practical are these stewardship measures? I assume someone has a rotation and they want to grow a break crop in a particular field. How confident are you that they are sort of going to follow those stewardship principles, and what could be the repercussions if they don't?
So I think, the stewardship sort of suggestions or advice is good. It seems reasonably straightforward. I think certainly avoiding fields where the risk is high is the first point. Use of sort of tramline direction, and actually the use of buffer zones as well, I think it can be a helpful addition to that list. So if you've got a watercourse in a field, a 6 metre buffer zone or more if it's a higher risk field, can really help prevent the movement of the herbicide into watercourses. The impact can be quite serious, I suppose, if propyzamide ends up in drinking water sources, because it's not very easy to remove from water. I suppose that's the key thing. And many reservoirs are not set up to remove something like propyzamide particularly easily, so it requires specific equipment. That's my understanding. So I think I would say stewardship is not difficult to put in place, and as Joe rightly pointed out earlier, it's the best course of action because we want to keep propyzamide for use in winter beans. Rightly so, it's a good place to help to control blackgrass in rotations with a product that's got a different mode of action. So I don't think there's anything in the stewardship guidance that I would think farmers should find particularly difficult.
And it's always quite difficult for farmers to judge just how much attention water companies are paying to issues like this. Certainly in the past 15, 20 years, there's been a handful of stewardship, mainly voluntary stewardship campaigns to prevent things like this happening in the past. Many have been extremely successful and either prolonged or continue to see products used now. But Becky, how serious is this situation? Because we've seen many products come under the spotlight over the past 15 or 20 years, and many voluntary initiatives have sort of staved off any massive issues occurring, or at least we've shown that we're doing everything that we can in agriculture to protect drinking water and the environment more generally. But how serious is the scrutiny on propyzamide, do you think?
It is quite serious, and water companies are testing routinely for all sorts of things in drinking water sources. So it does need to be taken seriously, and I do believe that the stewardship guidance will prevent future problems, but growers do need to take action. One of the things that growers can also do is to look at Environment Agency maps for these drinking water protected zones. So they're areas where they might think, actually, I won't grow winter beans in that area. If I need to use propyzamide, it's a high risk. So there are quite a lot of resources available to growers, both on the Environment Agency website, and also actually Corteva have got a really good stewardship guidance on their website too, and a lot of information about propyzamide.
And Joe, sort of same question to you, I guess, really. How serious is the situation from Corteva's point of view? And you've been working on stewardship for a number of years across a number of products, or across a number of crops. So you are obviously taking the situation seriously, and I hope the message is landing.
I would say, we do take it very seriously. I work with other colleagues within Corteva on the stewardship, and I also sit on the Propyzamide working group, where we work with all of the water companies to assess problems that we're seeing with Propyzamide in drinking water. It does come up occasionally at certain sites, and this can be due to a whole number of factors. We're very keen to ensure that we maintain that relationship with the water companies and do everything that we can from Corteva's side to reduce the levels of propyzamide that could potentially reach drinking water supplies.
Just to round off then, so if growers are listening to this and want to refresh their memories on what the stewardship principles are and perhaps look for some handy tips and tricks, Joe, where's the best place for them to go?
So we've got a great website, so www.corteva.co.uk/propyzamide, and in there you'll find the link through to the stewardship pages, where you can also get more training, earn CPD training points for both basis and Neroso. We have a Kerb Weather app, which helps in terms of application and predicting weather. And you can also call our technical hotline if you want further advice from somebody at Corteva.
So quite a few different ways to do that. I've seen the Kerb Weather app in action over a number of years, and it's certainly a very handy traffic light system which can help you decide whether or not is the right time to go out and apply the product. So it's a good option for you there if you wanted something to carry around with you in your pocket. So thanks to Joe Martin and Becky Howard there for their help in identifying some of the stewardship measures that growers can take ahead of drilling. Good luck to you if you're heading out to the fields drilling at the moment. Please remember some of the principles that have been discussed on today's podcast, and if you need to be reminded of the links of where you can find that information again, then I will put the link in the show notes for you to click and go through to. That's it for today. We'll be back again soon with another episode. If you don't want to miss it, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you've enjoyed what you've listened to today, please leave us a like on whatever platform you're using to listen to it. We'll be back again soon with the next episode. In the meantime, thanks very much for listening.